That feeling,
Hmm.
the one where you just keep replaying something in your head, wishing you'd, done it differently, regret.
Hmm.
We've all been there, right? And man, it can really stick with you.
Oh, absolutely. And what's really fascinating and what we're digging into today is that this isn't just like an emotional thing floating around.
Yeah.
There's real physical stuff happening in the brain, neuroscience.
Okay.
So we're going to explore that, the neuroscience behind regret, and maybe even better, look at some, practical ways to handle it, to move forward.
And we're drawing on a discussion from the mind-body loop for this deep dive.
Exactly. They had a really insightful conversation about it.
Okay, cool. So when that regret feeling, like, kicks in, what is actually happening up there
Yeah.
in the brain?
Right. So the mind-body loop talk really highlighted two main areas that get activated.
Two areas, okay.
First, there's the orbitofrontal cortex.
Orbitofrontal cortex, okay, what does that part do? Sounds complex.
Think of it like your brain's internal accountant. It's always evaluating decisions, weighing the pros and cons, even after you've made the choice.
Mhm.
It runs those what-if scenarios.
Ah, okay. Like, should I have picked the other option? Constantly calculating.
Kind of, yeah. And then the second key player is the amygdala.
The amygdala, I've heard of that one. That's the emotion center, right? Fear, anger.
Spot on. It's central to our emotional responses.
Mm-hmm.
So you get this powerful mix.
So it's like the logical part, the accountant part, reevaluating the decision,
Mm-hmm.
while the emotional part is just flooding you with, well, feeling bad about it.
Precisely. It's like your brain is screening these alternate movie endings, the ones you didn't choose.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense why it feels so intense sometimes.
Yeah. And something else the mind-body loop discussion really brought out was that the kind of regret seems to matter to the brain.
Oh, so?
Well, it looks like our brains often react more strongly to regrets about inaction.
Inaction, you mean things we didn't do.
Exactly. Things we didn't do versus mistakes we made when we actually, took a leap.
Huh. That really resonates, actually. I mean, you think about times you didn't speak up or didn't take a chance.
Right. Or didn't tell someone how you felt.
Yeah. Those seem to hang around longer or feel heavier somehow. Why is that? Did they have a theory on why inaction stings more?
They touched on this idea that our brains might keep a sort of bigger, maybe more active what could been file for those missed opportunities.
Oh, there could have been file. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the outcome is unknown, right?
Yeah.
The potential of what might have happened can feel huge, maybe even more potent than a known bad outcome from an action you did take.
Because it's undefined. It could have been amazing or terrible, but you just don't know.
Exactly. And maybe that lack of resolution makes it harder for the brain to process and just file away. The possibilities just keep nagging.
That makes a lot of sense, that unresolved potential feels.
Yeah, maybe more tormenting than a concrete mistake you can at least analyze.
But, okay, this isn't all doom and gloom, right? The brain isn't just stuck replaying these regrets forever. The mind-body loop hosts mention hope, I assume.
Oh, definitely. That's where neuroplasticity comes in, which is just, the brain's amazing ability to change and reorganize itself.
Right. The idea that the brain isn't fixed, it can form new connections.
Exactly. Throughout our lives. So it gives us real optimism. It means, with practice, we can actually reshape how we respond to regret. Weaken those old pathways, build new ones.
We can actively work on it. Okay, that's crucial.
It really is.
And the mind-body loop discussion didn't just talk about the problem, they offered solutions, right? Practical things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
They highlighted some really useful techniques. One that stood out was counterfactual reframing.
Counterfactual reframing. Okay, break that down. How does that work?
So basically, it's about consciously changing the story you tell yourself. Instead of getting stuck in that loop of, if only I had done X.
Yeah, the if-only trap.
Right. You pivot. You shift to something like, because I didn't do X, I learned Y.
Ah, so finding the lesson.
Exactly. It's subtle, but it's powerful. You're directing your focus towards the growth, the learning that came from not taking that action, instead of just the negative feeling.
Can you give, like, an example?
Sure. Like, instead of thinking, ugh, if only I hadn't bombed that interview, you might reframe it as, okay, because I bombed that interview, I realized I really needed to practice my communication skills, and that actually helped me nail the next one, which is a better fit anyway.
Got it. So you're not denying the regret, but you're extracting something useful from it, turning it into data, almost.
You got it. It becomes information for future you.
Okay, I like that. What else did they suggest? I think they mentioned journaling,
Yes, specifically self-compassion journaling.
self-compassion, treating yourself kindly.
Pretty much. The idea is to intentionally treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd give a friend in the same boat, instead of beating yourself up.
Which is often our first instinct, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
And the research they mentioned suggests this practice, this self-kindness, can actually reduce activity in the brain's threat center.
The amygdala again.
Likely involved, yeah.
Yeah.
That part of the brain that gets all fired up when we're in that cycle of regret and self-criticism.
So being kinder to yourself literally calms your brain down.
It seems so. It takes the edge off that intense emotional charge.
That sounds incredibly useful, though maybe hard to do in the moment.
It takes practice for sure, like any new skill.
Did the hosts in the mind-body loop discussion share any, personal stories about this? About handling regret?
They did. Maya, I think it was, talked about regretting turning down this really challenging project because she was scared.
Okay.
But reflecting on that regret later actually taught her a valuable lesson about leaning into fear, about pushing her boundaries.
Ah, so the regret became a teacher.
Exactly. It was unpleasant at first, but it led to growth. It showed her something about herself she needed to work on.
That's a great example of that reframing in action.
Definitely. And Ryan shared something, too, about regretting not setting healthier boundaries earlier in his life.
Oh, that's a common one, I think.
Very. And he talked about how wrestling with that pain, that regret, eventually pushed him towards therapy.
Okay.
And through that process, he developed more self-respect and learned how to actually implement those boundaries.
So again, the regret, while painful, was a catalyst for positive change. It really drives home that idea that regret doesn't have to be the end point.
Not at all. It can be really uncomfortable, yeah. But it holds valuable information if we let it. The key is to learn the lesson and then, consciously decide to move on.
Extract the lesson. Don't get stuck in the emotional quicksand.
Go put, yeah. And the mind-body loop folks also offered a really simple, practical first step if you're feeling overwhelmed by a regret.
Okay. What's that?
Just externalizing it, getting it out of your head.
How? Like talking about it?
Yeah, talking to a trusted friend or writing it down in that journal we mentioned, or even just recording a voice memo for yourself.
Ah, just the act of articulating it.
Exactly. Sometimes just getting the thoughts and feelings out there creates a bit of distance that lets you look at the regret maybe a little more objectively.
Like seeing it outside of yourself instead of being consumed by it.
Mm-hmm. It can be that crucial first step towards reframing it and starting to heal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
A way to start untangling it.
Yeah. And the final thought they shared in the mind-body loop discussion, it's a really important one to hang on to.
Okay.
Just the idea that our past mistakes, our past missed opportunities,
Yeah.
they don't define our future.
Right. The future is still open, full of possibilities.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder. We can't change the past, obviously, but we absolutely have agency over our choices now and where we go from here.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up, this deep dive into regret, drawing on that great mind-body loop discussion.
Yeah.
We've touched on the neuroscience, right? The orbitofrontal cortex doing the what-if calculations, the amygdala bringing the emotional heat.
Check. And we talked about how inaction regrets, those what could been things, often hit harder.
Right, that lingering potential. But the hopeful part is neuroplasticity, our brains can change.
Definitely. And we have tools. Counterfactual reframing.
Shifting from if only to because I didn't, I learned.
Yep. And self-compassion journaling, treating yourself like a friend.
Which can actually calm down the brain's threat response. Plus, we heard those personal stories, Maya and Ryan turning regret into growth.
And that simple first step, just externalize it. Talk, write, record, get it out.
Okay, so here's something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. How might consciously choosing to act more often, even when there's that risk of failure, maybe even because of the risk,
Yeah.
how might that change what's in your own what could have been file when you look back down the road?